You're now listening to the Something Good Podcast Network. Please press any key to continue.
Alright, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of The Couch Potatoes. I'm Alex.
Go Bulldogs! Chris.
Oh, you changed it up.
Morrison. Chris Morrison. You address me as such.
Oh, it's good to be back around the table again this week. How's your week been going, buddy?
Working.
Yeah.
Working for the Panera bread.
Oh, yeah. Mother bread.
Mother bread, yeah. That's what I keep hearing. with the youngins.
I know. You're like one of the oldest, the more elderly.
Yes.
Go ahead and throw that one out. You're the most elderly person working there, Chris.
I'm an old ass man.
You're an old motherfucker now. No, seriously, what's it like working with the Gen Zers now?
It's not bad.
Because that's the weird thing is between the millennials and what was the one that came after? Because there's one in between.
Generation X.
X was a little difficult to work with, and it almost feels like Gen Z kind of understands the millennials a little more. Mm-hmm. A little bit.
No, it's all right. They think I'm 25. Which is a nice compliment.
Wait, I was going to say, yeah, you'd rather get 25 than 45.
Yeah, I got 45 one time working at a place, and it was just the terrible way I look of how my appearance gives off that white supremacy vibe.
Well, it also hit me the other day too at my work because my coworker is just a couple years younger than me, and then the guy that took my position is like fucking 22.
Yeah, but he's like a deaf 22.
So
that's a different thing.
So all of a sudden it hit me and my main coworker. We were just like, we're the adults in the we need an adult situation. Oh, fuck.
You will die soon.
We are the adults.
Yep.
And that's kind of a weird thing to think on.
You're so old. Your body's going to give up on you soon.
No. That's why we have shows like this so we can continue to live out our childhood and just completely disengage from all of society and dig
just
into
the tail end of your golden years. Let me tell you something about Chevrolet. Beep. Just flatlined right there. That's it. Doing it from your hospital bed.
Well, yeah. Yeah, probably. Well, talking about enjoying shit we liked as kids, let's go ahead and head on over to our news segment so we can talk about one of the biggest trailers that dropped this last week or two.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we've got Mandalorian Season 3 on the horizon.
Coming out March 1st.
March 1st. Impressions of the trailer. What'd you think?
I'm really excited. They're going to really introduce more of the Mandalorian people. They're going back to Mandalore. It looks like we're going to get some flashback footage from Order 66 from the original Star Wars 1 through 3. And that's one thing I'm kind of like, that kind of threw me off. I think we've already acknowledged that enough with the other Star Wars stuff. I think we can step off of it for right now. Yeah, this is supposed to be a Star Wars story. Let's talk about a character that's not a fucking Jedi. You know what I'm saying? We got great cameos from Luke Skywalker. You know, we got great cameos from Bo-Katan and all these other characters who have been in development. But now you've kind of set up, hey, let's go back to Mandalore. Let's go back to more about Pedro Pascal's character. You know, let's find out more about him. I could really give a shit about the Jedi. I'm serious. Like it gets overplayed and oversaturated very quickly.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
And they've had a lot of success right now with Andor, which I still haven't watched, but they had a lot of success with the Bad Batch, which also isn't like a very Jedi heavy storyline. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of that kind of intercede.
And if they do that moving forward, I think that's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Because anytime you start involving Jedi in those really big, grand, mystical type stories, you wind up running into a lot of problems where there's a lot of area to mess with that canon and a lot of things to kind of fuck up and get the fan base annoyed. Whereas exactly what you're saying, if you focus on these kind of smaller characters that don't have a canon pre-built, that, their story is not based upon... when you really think about it, we're kind of focusing on one family of an entire galaxy of motherfuckers. Yeah. So it's like, there's a bunch of stories that have nothing to do with the main that you're right, they can absolutely do. I think the only thing I may disagree with you on is I know where you're coming from on them doing so much retracing of Mandalore, but I believe they did a lot of that in the Clone Wars animated show, correct?
Yeah, so Mandalore isn't... In the 3D animated, Mandalore's brought up quite a bit. And that's where you get your Bo-Katan and stuff like that, those characters. Right. And we find out that the Empire does like kind of a back alley deal with them and then renegotiates the contract and then kills them all. And we saw that footage in like season 2, I believe, of all the Mandalorians being killed and kind of forced under, which, the amount of scores of people you would probably need to kill the warrior planet would be ridiculously large.
Yeah, so I can absolutely see where you're coming from on, maybe kind of lay that portion of it to bed because, you watched a lot of the animated series. I'm kind of among maybe kind of looking around maybe 25 to 50% of the fan base that just doesn't watch the animated. So really my basis of everything Star Wars is the live action stuff. I've never really read the comics, never really expanded into any of the animated shows or even really followed any of the game lore outside of that recent one that came out. So for me, I am personally kind of interested in seeing the way they kind of pull that across, mainly because I've just not gotten that story quite as much as, other fans like you that watch the animated.
I think we'll get a nice little preamble to what will eventually become the First Order, kind of a restructure of the Empire, kind of. That would be kind of my biggest hope by the end of the third season is, hey, let's see how the Empire changed to the First Order. Let's see, hey, what changes were they making? Because it's going to be like a 20-year gap between, Return of the Jedi, which is Mandalorian season 1, 2, to, Force Awakens. So we're going to get quite a bit of things. Would it be cool to see a kid Poe Dameron? That'd be cool. Selling dope on the street or something,
Spice.
Selling his fucking drugs on the street. We did see some characters that we saw from the Rise of Skywalker, the little Muppet character.
Yeah, the Bobo Frick or whatever.
Yeah, we saw characters that look like that, the species. Yep. It's just going to add to the lore.
It is.
It is a tapestry of storytelling of a space western.
I'm extremely excited for it. This is one of the ongoing Star Wars things that even though season 2 wasn't quite as good and Book of Boba Fett was more or less just a fun popcorn ride, even though those weren't as great, I'm still holding on to this series and just with excitement.
Does it feel that like the trailer is a little too close to premiere date? Do you get that? You know what I'm saying? Like when we first saw a Star Wars trailer, it's like Christmas of 2024, and it's just like, okay, that's cool, just an announcement. We didn't even get an announcement. This is just a straight up trailer, and it's what, 2 months out, a month out, and this came out like
the tail end of last week, I think. It slipped right under my radar for last week's news.
A 5 week, hey, get ready. And it's just like, that's very fast.
Well, I think that's kind of indicative of where Disney is right now. They're not very confident on their Star Wars IP. Because both Star Wars and Marvel, of course, there's going to be the subset of fans that, loves nearly everything they put out. But, I would say both Marvel and Star Wars have been kind of hit and miss lately with some of their properties, because like I said, again, you're going to find people that love anything, but at the same time, the mass majority, I've not seen huge clamoring toward Andor. I didn't see a mass clamoring toward, Book of Boba Fett. Same thing as I'm not really seeing it toward a lot of the recent Marvel movies or TV series, and a lot of those I even really enjoyed, but I'm not seeing a lot of people enjoying them along with. So I don't know. I think it's just indicative of kind of where Disney is right now. And the one thing I took away from the trailer, and it's not too much of a negative, it was when we were watching it together, it felt like maybe the first 15 to 20 seconds was stuff I had already seen before.
No.
Like, I could tell it was new footage. I could tell they weren't recycling things, but like everything just felt so familiar. I was like, oh yeah, I could place that in season 1. I could place that in season 2. I'm just hoping they do something pretty fun and creative with this season, and it doesn't feel like, hey, you're just getting another season of the Star Wars show you like. Yeah. I'm really aching for them to do something interesting with this.
I think this is going to be a very, very well done season. I know there's a lot of push for season 2 of Obi-Wan, so I think that's kind of why they're trying to do March 1st premiere instead of, let's say, an April or a May, to tail into the summer or the beginning of summer, because that's when I would have expected it would be May,
right?
Just give us a summer show, it's going to kick off, because notoriously it was always like around Christmas holiday time, that's when the last 2 seasons were, Thanksgiving and Christmas time and stuff like that, and I think what it is, like you said, there's not a lot of product coming out of Disney. Plus, this will go toe-to-toe with Last of Us, which has got a massive fucking critical acclaim from fans.
Oh, yeah, and I remember seeing little talk pieces about Last of Us before it came out, and like a lot of fans were kind of on that. I'm really worried. I want this to be good, but I don't have faith. Like, a lot of people were not expecting it to work as well as it did.
Because it's a video game adaptation.
Exactly.
And we've talked about it before. Video games are the next movies. Like, the best Spider-Man movie is the Spider-Man game.
Yep.
Like, what I'm saying? Like, one of the greatest Westerns I've ever watched was Red Dead 2. And it's just like if you sit down and just watch the video game play. And
best post-apocalyptic movie is Fallout.
Yeah. And it's just like, The Last of Us is one of those stories that are just, it's set in that mainstream, scientific world, science fiction world of, all the world's collapsed. This is about loss, and this is going to show you about loss. And when it first came out, the game, people were like, what the fuck? You can do that in a game? You can kill a main character's daughter in front of him, and it's just like, oh, enjoy. That was the first 15 minutes. It's going to get so much fucking worse.
If they want to make a fucked up movie, make a Heavy Rain movie.
Yeah, like... it would be funny to do a Heavy Rain, but do it as like a comedy, just a little bit like a slapstick, just like, fuck, like he just reaches for the doorknob and goes.
Yes, that's exactly what I was gonna say. There's gotta be some slapstick of like him missing his face with the mug, because it's like that whole
son of a bitch.
The first 10 minutes of that entire game is you having to learn the controls and just like do your morning routine, and you're like, mother fuck. This was when the PS4 had just come out, and they're trying to use all those like moving controls, use the touchpad for things, stuff that you never use that controller for anymore. It's just
the Last of Us has proven that video game adaptations can be done correctly. It is still early. I think we're only on episode 1 or 2 or 3 right now, and that was another one when we saw the trailer. I believe it was like before Thanksgiving of last year. That's a very big gap for them to show, and what a trailer on that one. But
I think it's just because of how confident they were.
Yeah.
But I think right now, between the kind of mediocre, I wouldn't say anything has been outright bad from Marvel, but there's been some kind of mediocre that's been coming out from them lately. Yeah. And I think with them just not getting such a warm reception to basically anything Star Wars related they've done, aside from Rogue One and the first season of Mandalorian, those seem to be the only 2 things that almost every Star Wars fan will go, yeah, that was good.
Yeah. And it's kind of hard to George Lucas isn't involved, obviously. You can take that either as a good thing or a bad thing, because he fucked his own story up quite a bit. We've watched it with Jar Jar Binks. And I still say when we talked about Force Awakens, I think it would have hit harder if Poe Dameron in the beginning of Force Awakens had met up with Jar Jar Binks instead of Max von Sydow that we see in the tent. Can you imagine how hard that would have hit, that they would have killed him in front of you? Like, he's old and withered, and he has regret about helping the Empire become the Empire.
And he actually learned how to properly speak, and he's speaking all Shakespearean, and he looks like like war-torn and everything else.
He's like missing an eye or some shit. And it's just like, hey, remember this character, his slapstick piece of shit? We're going to kill him in front of you.
Misa, do the right thing.
And just gets choked to death.
Yes.
And he calls him by his name. Hey, Ben. And it's just like,
Yusa Ben.
punk ass trick.
But yeah, so I don't know. I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, it's my excitement for really Marvel and Star Wars is kind of waned some. Like Ant-Man brought me back up a little bit. That looks really fun, and so does this. So who knows? And I also wonder when you were saying, usually this is a bit more of like a summertime thing. I wonder if because since they've only had mediocre success with MCU and they've kind of had some backlashes with Star Wars, I wonder if they're kind of just putting more eggs in their MCU basket and saving some of that stuff for the summer.
I imagine so.
Keep Star Wars out of the way.
Yeah, I imagine that's what they're doing because you don't want to compete with yourself.
No,
because then you're just dividing your viewership. And I will say, people don't we don't have the money to watch all this shit, all the
or
fucking
the time.
Yeah, you got to work. And I think if I was a person in the studio when it comes to like scheduling product to come out, I would want to see what other studios are promising to come out, because you don't want to pull a James Cameron and pull fucking Avatar 2 out of your ass right when Megan comes out and you get beat by a goddamn comedy thriller about
I love that.
About a TikTok dancing robot who murders people, and I'm pretty sure probably eats one of them.
I still really want to see that movie.
Oh god, it's gonna be fantastic.
Oh god,
I heard it was actually too brutal for what they wanted, and they cut it back, and that's why it's PG-13.
Oh, so there's gonna be an unrated version,
and there's already talk of the second one.
Oh yeah.
So,
no, actually,
Megan 2 Robots Boogaloo.
It kind of looks like this year is shaping up to be pretty good for horror movies of all years.
Well, speaking of that, Sean S. Cunningham, the guy that made Friday the 13th and a couple other great horror flicks, actually came out and said that he will be rebooting the Friday the 13th franchise, along with the House franchise, which is another horror set with Norm and Cliff from fucking Cheers were in it. But yeah, so he will be coming out with another probably like our full reboot like we've seen before. They tried doing it years ago, was basically movies 1, 2, and 3 put together. And it was fun. It kind of made Jason a little bit more realer. Like, hey, how did he get around so fast? Oh, there's a tunnel under the ground that he keeps running, that he can run to from.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh shit, was he in Vietnam or some shit? Because he's got all these little tunnels running around. Was he in Da Nang? Like, and so I'm like, I'm excited that Sean S. Cunningham is coming back for it, because he wasn't involved with the later ones and the one that came out a few years ago. So
okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because that's the other thing too, is we seem to be getting a resurgence of a lot of these 70s horror movies getting rebooted. We saw the new Texas Chainsaw that came out on Netflix.
Fucking hilarious.
And I can't think of the other ones right off, but it did feel like there was a couple others that were kind of bubbling up.
And there are there's a big resurgence of new directors. Your Ari Aster's, your Ty West is coming back. He's actually going to be the first one to ever create a triple feature with X, Pearl, and the next movie will be coming out soon. So within a span of 1 year, he'll have a three movie set. Plus you have Barbarian's been approved for a sequel, or a sequel-esque movie by the director, and all these newer horror movies have really been pumping out pretty good. I consider, like we've talked about it before, The Menu had just arrived, and
we'll do an episode on that one. That's been on my watch. I've been now served up a bunch of shorts from it, and I'm like, God, this looks good. I actually need to sit down and watch the damn thing.
But also HBO investing into the horror genre quite a bit with like Malignant, which is batshit insane, but also Barbarian and a couple other things.
Yeah. Well, talking about fake horror, move into real life horror. As a proxy of that, Justin Roiland has been now kicked off of Rick and Morty. But we saw a thing from Adult Swim where they said that Rick and Morty will continue.
Yeah, it's it's an IP they want to keep.
Yeah.
Even with they still have Dan Harmon.
Yeah, but didn't he even? Now look, I'm speaking from a lot of ignorance. Listeners, I don't watch Rick and Morty. I don't pay attention to what these guys do. I watched a few clips when it was super mega crazy popular a few years ago and went, it's not my funny. I see why people find this funny. It's not my funny.
It's just it's just another show.
But what I was saying though is, didn't Dan step away? Yeah,
Dan Harmon stepped away because him and Justin Roiland had worked so hard on that. But Dan Harmon also came from Community and a couple of other shows, which we'll talk about Community later. But they've had their own problems going into it, which we've seen a lot from producers lately. Is it as bad Yes and no. Dan Harmon's kind of situation was a little awkward, but he was also working with people like Chevy fucking Chase, who probably shouldn't be in fucking acting anymore.
Yeah.
So like, I can understand him losing his goddamn shit, but Justin Roiland fucked up, and I don't see it affecting Rick and Morty or Solar Opposites, which is the other show on Hulu, or any other product coming out of that main production house. In a big way, it's voice acting that's what's going to be an issue. I'm kind of excited to see how they're going to do it, because the way Rick and Morty is so meta that they make fun of themselves constantly. I'm just like, yeah, fuck it up, like really fuck with it, just because the fandom for that is almost as bad as Star Wars. It's so,
I would almost say worse.
They're fucking toxic as shit. And
look, Star Wars fans didn't descend on McDonald's screaming shit, demanding fucking sugary sauce.
Yeah, no, they just loitered outside a movie theater.
Yeah,
and
quietly
harass people. Yeah, for Force Awakens, I remember that shit hard. Like, it's just like, this happened. They're like, get the fuck out of my face. I'm trying to see the new Indiana Jones movie. But like, that's kind of indicative of a lot of, people who do shows in general, Nickelodeon being the biggest one, but it's just one guy on this.
Yeah.
And I told you before we recorded that there is a petition right now to have Danny DeVito and Charlie Day replace Rick and Morty.
If that happened, I would watch an episode. That would get me to watch an episode.
Yeah, that would be funny. But like, Justin Roiland only has one voice acting job on Solar Opposites, so that show would continue, and that show to me is better than Rick and Morty.
And doesn't Justin do both Rick and Morty?
Yes, I believe
the voice. So. And I think that was the main thing that I was kind of sitting here going like, wow, is like, I don't know. That would be as if, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers decided to continue on even though Tom died and just call themselves the Heartbreakers, which I'm sure that version of the band did some stuff randomly here and there, but still it would be under that same pretense of like, because it's almost kind of, I don't know, the more I'm thinking on it, it's a pretty good comparison, because with a band, especially a singer-songwriter like Tom Petty, he created the sound and the vision, sent it off to the other musicians, and they play it. So it's something that he started and they continue on. Much like, say, with Rick and Morty, is something that Justin helped start, created the foundation, wrote the scripts, and now they're going to continue on without the person that had the initial idea. It just feels really weird. Now, I'm not saying, cancel the show. I don't hate the show. I'm for the fans, I'm glad it's going to continue. And for the most part, looking online, everyone seems to be cool with the decision. So great on you. Fantastic. I guess just as a creative and someone that also is on both sides of the field, I just go, it's going to be weird, is it not?
Yeah,
like the main Matt Groening is no longer part of The Simpsons, and someone else is going to voice Homer. Like that would be a little, well, not he'd never voice Homer. You know what I mean? Though.
But it's
it'd be a little weird.
Like, it's no different than when we was watching the 90s show. Out of the 3 producers that did that 70s show, Terry Turner's the only guy that came back.
Right.
And the producers of that show are like knee deep in it. So, so we still get it. The show was still good in my opinion. So like, I'm not seeing as much of Justin Roiland's fucking hands in the pot on this one, especially in the later seasons. But it's not like everybody's comparing this to like, what if Seth MacFarlane had fucked up? First of all, Seth MacFarlane has like 40 fucking shows, and he is talking to himself constantly in every fucking show. That is not the same comparison. Okay, like, we
need to just be watching out for his sanity.
Yeah, like, he will have a mental fucking breakdown and kill somebody, and dress like a giant teddy bear or some shit. Like, but this show can continue. Will it finish? Yes, I totally believe it should. Another show I like, that's kind of the same situation, is the Venture Brothers. Doc Hammer and a couple of other guys who make the show have kind of stepped away, come back. Not because of some controversy, just because they don't have the time. Because just like Justin Roiland was, they were entrenched with Adult Swim and HBO and shit like that. So there is a schedule that needs to be made.
Yeah.
And whether he comes back or not, or whether he just, does anything, is up in the air. And I don't think that's going to really affect the show in quality. Now, I could be fucking wrong.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not. But I think probably season 7 would be the last.
Yeah, I could definitely see Solar Opposites lasting a little longer than Rick and Morty would at this
Solar
point.
Opposites is fucking solid.
Yeah, and the episodes I watched was really good.
And somehow the C plot is the best plot in that fucking show. The wall people.
The wall people. No, I watched a few episodes with you, and yeah, that was much more enjoyable than Rick and Morty. So I would definitely, for my own personal thing, I'd like to see Solar Opposites last a little longer on that one.
Yeah.
Another little piece that came out that I was at least kind of excited for is if you own the Nintendo 64 expansion pack for the Nintendo Switch, they just dropped GoldenEye 64.
The first multiplayer FPS.
Yes, and normally that would be just kind of the end of that story, but something else I found out is not only did it get released on Switch, it's part of Xbox as well. Mm-hmm. So Xbox now has a Nintendo 64 game.
Well, the James Bond franchise had expanded to Xbox years ago when I want to say The World Is Not Enough, and they've made games like that. Mr. Sunday Movies plays like all the James Bond games, but they've been playing them on the Xbox, and I'm just like watching them play these fucking stupid ass games. The whole story of how the people that own James Bond, the Broccoli family, that's literally their fucking name. The Broccoli family have the property rights to James Bond, and they're very secure about the property when it comes to making James Bond movies. Like, they have a say on who gets to be James Bond and shit like that. Even though Ian Fleming, the man who wrote the shit, didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And they're mainly stories about him, because he wrote stories about doing spy shit in World War II with Roald Dahl, the guy that wrote James and the Giant Peach and the BFG. Yeah, those guys, your favorite kid writer, was a fucking Nazi murdering spy. Like, that's what they did back in the day.
I love it, though.
Yeah, that was the shit. You know, hey, yeah, you like James and the Giant Peach? It's an allegory for him strangling a Nazi to death with a fucking piano wire. And it's just metal shit. And it's funny because the games are still going, and they believe it was like 2-3 years ago they released James Bond 50, which was like, it had a level from Mario 64. It had a level GoldenEye 64 in it. So it was one of the coolest games that kind of flew under the radar for the 64 because it was fans who noticed the multiplayer, and it was all actually the story of GoldenEye 64 is they added that in. The developers added that in later on. And it's kind of like, we need to test out the mechanics of the characters. And then they decided saying, hey, can we add this, this, and this? And that's why you get character selection and stuff like that. Because the game, for its time, was the first one where you had to reload. You had to move a certain way with the way the joysticks and everything's controlled. You have a camera stick and a move stick, as opposed to the NES and SNES where you had Doom and it's just like, run, move side to side, run. And also another thing that first person shooters do is bullet effects, which is like makes it look as realistic as possible. So when you shoot a wall in GoldenEye, there's a bullet hole.
Yeah.
Games had like off and on did this, and it fucked this experience up quite a bit, because if I shoot something, nothing happens. But like now, if I shoot something, a whole fucking hole is getting in the wall, and I could write my name in bullets if I wanted to. But like, that's something that adds to that adds to the experience of the game. Kind of like when you play Spider-Man, you kick a dude off a building. Did he die? No. Like some magical web came out of nowhere and zipped him to a fucking building. Which I've tried so hard to murder people in the Spider-Man game.
Spider-Man won't kill.
Spider-Man's swinging like an 80-degree arc at fucking 160 miles, kicking a dude in the chest off a building. He's dead. His heart was liquefied.
You're just holding on to a corpse.
Yeah, I'm holding on to a corpse that who has forgotten his family and children. Just like, his head has bounced off the ground too hard.
GoldenEye 64 was definitely the first kind of first-person shooter I ever played. We rented it from Best Buy. Not Best Buy. Blockbuster a whole lot, because we had one just kind of right down the road, and Mom would let me alternate. I usually alternated between getting that, Mario 64, and Yoshi Story. Yeah, and so I'd usually just kind of flip-flop between getting those. But every time I had GoldenEye, I really liked that one. only time experience I've had with it since then is I think it was available for the Virtual Console on the Wii.
Yeah.
I got it then and like played a few levels and went, this isn't that good.
What's crazy is like another part of the game was there was so many different ways to play the actual story of the game. So if you played it like a spy, you know, snuck around, you could complete the game a certain way, and there's a different ending, I believe, on certain levels. And the whole like, let's take a photo of Pierce Brosnan and put it on a 3D model and model it after, and everybody's like, holy shit, that's cool, that's so fucking realistic, you know, it looks like James Bond. And it's like
now it's like, our Wii characters look better than this.
Well, what's funny is like, I think it's like 80 polygons on a fucking 64 character, and now you can't, there's not enough, that's not even enough to make Mario's eye. And like you need like 160 polygons just to make like his hat and on the Switch or some shit. But it's funny like how like the dynamic of like, hey, let's make this work as cheap as possible. It's kind of like if you play PC games and put it on the lowest setting. And it just looks like trash. And it's just like, that is fucking hilarious. And then you turn it all the way the fuck up, and it's just like, I could see the bead of sweat above his eye.
Fuck.
But that you know, GoldenEye would have been a great game to remake now.
Yes, and that's actually one of the things I'm surprised they did. Is I'm surprised that, you know, well, I'm happy they're putting it out on the Virtual Console, but I'm surprised they didn't give it the remaster treatment like we get with a lot of these old games, where it's like they basically rebuild it from the ground up, just keeping the same levels.
Yeah, but that's probably from the Broccoli family who don't want to keep pushing older movies and want to push the new movies. Because
stupid Broccoli.
Yeah, the Broccoli family, they're fucking idiots. They are, like, they legitimately are, because they refuse to republish the original books, and everybody's like clamoring for the books now, and then someone released it illegally on digital, and it got torrented like a motherfucker. Like,
hell yeah.
And it's just like, and because it's a book and it's a torrent, it takes like 2 seconds to download the entire book, and it's just like
done.
And they're like, we're losing fucking money. Well, you were asked to redo it. Like, you
you're not losing money if you're not printing them to start with.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But
fuck.
But it's fucking hilarious the way that family is so full of idiots.
And man,
going to a quick thing. Game Freak, the company Game Freak, will no longer be doing Pokemon games.
Oh shit!
Yeah, they're getting out of the Poke business.
Well, yeah, I mean it's partly the Pokemon company now, anyway. So,
but like they've always developed the games, even this last game. But now they're getting out of the Pokemon business.
Well, shit. Well, now you fucked up my segue, Chris.
What was your segue?
I was about to say, with this new format, you're giving me all these perfect segues that I was going to use because we were talking about fucked up families. There is a new TV show on TLC, of fucking course.
The Learning Channel. The
Learning Channel. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be learning on this new show called Milf Manor how to not have sex with your son.
There's a whole subgraphic on Pornhub about that's the opposite of that.
Yes. When I say this show is fucking asinine, it is... You take The Bachelor and Bachelorette, or Love is Blind, which is one of those like...
Was it like for blind people?
No, it's worse.
It would have been better if it was for blind people. Because we see them, they don't.
The fucked up thing about, you know, a show like Love is Blind is there's one of them, and I think that's what it's called, where you're dating while wearing like prosthetic masks and like full head like coverings.
That's hilarious.
And if you agree to date each other, then you're allowed to reveal your face. So it's like a big blind dating show. It's worse than this. You get all these fucking what they're called MILFs in this mansion, and they're under the pretense that they're on like some bachelor show, and some strapping young man is going to come out, and you know they've got to vie for his attention. Well, you quickly find out that there is a contestant for every female there, so it's equally numbered, and it's everyone's sons.
So I'm assuming these men are probably what, between 21 and 25.
Try 19 and 25.
Okay.
Yes.
So the women are between probably 37 and 40.
Closer to 40 to 60.
Okay.
Uh-huh. This show sends off so many what the fuck creeper flags. I can't describe it. There's a YouTuber I watch named Leon Lush, and he loves finding trash TV like this and watching it. And
that's all Learning Channel is, trash TV.
Absolutely. Same thing with History Channel, where the past is history.
You were talking about nostalgia a while back earlier, and I was like, that right there probably would have hit me harder than anything if I would go to watch History Channel today. And going back from when I used to watch it, when it was all about World War II, learning about the Germans, learning about modern marvels and, tragedies and stuff like that. Or just talk about engineering magnificence, to aliens built everything. And, human society is garbage. Yeah. You want to watch people shoot alligators? Okay. That's what happened. That's what fucking happened to the History Channel, the Learning Channel, American and Entertainment, which is an A&E. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's goddamn ridiculous. And this show is just...
It's right up there with Trailer Trash Honey Boo Boo.
It really is, because the whole... It's bad if the whole crux of your show, if the big selling point is
incest.
Incest! Why? Why is this a show? Like, literally, the first competition to see... Because, the secondary thing is all the sons to the mothers have to share a room. Okay? But they're allowed to bring the person that they're talking with into the room.
Yeah, so you're just listening to your mom getting raw dog by some guy you just hung out with.
Yeah.
And you're probably fucking that dude's mom later on.
Yeah. It's if that's the selling point of your show, where have we become?
Oh no! Like no, don't talk about lowering the bar.
I'm not talking about lowering the bar. It's just like, I'm sure the bar was already set there, but like, I was saying that the first competition to see who gets the big room. Okay, with, I guess, more privacy or whatever. But this room has like a fucking jacuzzi and all this shit. And it's like the master suite.
Like the Real World or some shit.
Yes, it's the master suite. It's the nice one. Part of the competition is the mothers get blindfolded. All of the sons take their shirts off, and the moms have to feel the chests and bodies of all the young men to figure out which one her son is. I would have walked the fuck out. I would have just been like, no.
Well, the stipulations.
No.
You got to think about the stipulations of any reality show is fucked up. Like, as far as that goes, that's fucking awful.
Yeah.
But like if you think about the stipulations of like The Bachelor or Bachelorette, you have to agree at some point in the contractual game. Hey, if you make it to like the top 3 or some shit, you have to get your family involved and say, hey, can I bring this person home and fuck them? And then, can I fuck them in your childhood home while you're there? Like, that is it's always been like that. They're just amping it up with incest.
Just what we need. Let's amp something up with incest.
Why not? We're all going to hell together.
That is one of those shows where it's like, I'm so amazed that it exists. But at the same time, now I want to watch all the review episodes just to see how fucking nuts this goes. Same thing with that adult adoption show.
Yeah.
Remember that thing that got canceled after like 3 episodes, but apparently they filmed an entire fucking season?
No. Well, it's like Kid Nation. Kid Nation was a horrible idea.
Well, Kid Nation, yes, that was a bad idea. That was poorly executed. Both of these shows, like the adult adoption show, guys, look this one up on YouTube. There's a million fucking commentators that did this. A guy that had a history with infidelity with his wife, with like younger kids, I didn't want to say underage, younger kids, like 18 plus, is now adopting
like a 21-year-old with a child.
Yes, like a 21-year-old child that is also pregnant with her own child. And the entire time, you're just watching this wife, like, wither away, like, emotionally, mentally. And the guy's making jokes, like, they're making, like, signs for, like, when she flies into town.
Welcome to town. Where's my blower?
Yes! Oh, my fucking God! And the wife's just sitting here, ha, 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 that's not really funny. And he's just like, I'm not trying to be funny. Ha, ha. And, like, walks away. She's like, I just don't know what people are going to think. And he's just like, I don't care what people think. This is love. I want to love this. Like, I want my own daughter. And I'm like, no, you want a 20-year-old little fuck toy. And you want to fuck her in the same bed that your wife is laying next to you and dare her to say something.
Well, I think the people at TLC and the History Channel and stuff like that kind of get in a room and seeing, like, at what point does public shame make money? And this is where it's at. Like that's the whole, like if you appear on the show The Big Brother, or if you appear on, you know, Extreme Cheapskates, Hoarders and something, you have a certain mentality. One, you need money, which is totally understandable. You can't get money fast enough, so you decide to sell your life to a reality show. And that happens. That's a lot of people get famous from doing stupid shit like that. The guy that won Survivor, the first guy, got pretty famous for the 3 years afterward, where he took that money and invested it and turned his life around. But you have other people. I think Chris James had pointed out during Extreme Cheapskates. He's like, "Oh, hey, I saw this girl before. Hit me in the comments," and it turned out that girl was on Jersey Shore for a few episodes. So like, there is a scripted part of it, and then there's always producers kind of like eyeing talent in a very ridiculous way.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's like this is going to be on the fire heap that is reality TV.
It's like these people watched it. It's like they looked at an season description of Jerry Springer and like looked at certain episode titles and went, 50-year-old married man adopts 20-year-old girl with child. We could make this a series. Like instead of it just being a singular episode on trash TV for us to gawk at and go, well, at least my family's not that fucked up, click. Now it's an entire season or series of that one episode.
I remember that being like probably the funniest like punchline of any Jerry Springer or Maury or Montel. It's like, have you been in a relationship with a trans person for over 10 years and haven't realized it? And it's just like, call us today.
Do you have really big news you want to share with your significant other but just don't know the right way to do it? Call the Jerry Springer hotline.
And there was just to plan off that a little bit, there was a story of a woman who worked for the company that made Jerry Springer, and she had came on toward the latter years, and people would send in, this is back during the videotape time, and people would send in videotapes, interview tape, and she's like, her job was actually to watch all of them in their entirety. That was her job, and she said she watched about 80 to 90 hours of footage a week. That was her job. She said she had watched so much snuff film that she had become kind of emotionless. Like people would send in snuff films, and she would have to document it and report it and where it came from. Wow. And like, I'm just thinking like that one guy who's just trying to get on Jerry, he can't get on Jerry because the woman just watched a person get killed by a gorilla or some shit. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what happened. It's like, oh man, we missed the next George Clooney because of that son of a bitch.
No, it's not a super well-known story, so I won't say exactly who, but through different musician friends of mine, there was someone that was a friend of theirs that got asked on the Jerry Springer show.
Oh, someone from my hometown was on there.
Yeah, and with this one, he came on saying that he was like this musical cult leader and had like all these, women by his side that at the snap of his fingers, she would do anything, sexual, otherwise, whatever. That was all made up on the spot.
Yeah.
Because he got the attention of the crew because of his shock rock antics. And he thought he was just going to go on there to talk about, just the crazy shit that happens on stage. And while they were backstage getting like their pre-interview, just to get a little bit more further detail, the producer was like, hey, do you have any like friends in town for like tomorrow's taping? And he's like, well, yeah, I brought a few people with me. And they're like, who are they? And I started asking like producer questions, and they're like, can you get them to agree to be your disciples? And he's just like, yeah, I guess I can do that. Went back, told the two girls, he's like, hey, we got to ham it up for this show. You got to act like my sex pets, and just be like absolutely anything. And they're like, all right, yeah, cool. Like that, they get on there and they play it up. They got the audience so riled up, and they're just like, yeah, we'll eat his shit. It doesn't matter. Yada, yada, yada. All fucking fake.
Yeah, that was the big point of, some of the things that happen in reality TV. There are crimes that happen afterward because of some of the things that happen, and then that's why I kind of get super scripted later on.
Yeah.
A good story of this is Judge Judy and Court TV and stuff like that. There's a comedian who constantly shows up on these shows, and him and his buddy just sue each other.
Yep.
And
I remember seeing that.
And this guy, he's just like, deadpan comedian, and it's so fucking funny.
It is.
And it's just like he talks about how kind of rude and like racist the Judge Judy people were, and then that turned into a whole story of like, oh, they are very selective on a race way on how they pick people to be on Judge Judy. And then you had like Judge Mathis and Judge Joe Brown was a big one. I wasn't a fan of court TV growing up. So
they're not actual judges, they're arbiters.
Yeah, but like
Arbiter Judy just doesn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah, but like my buddies would watch it. I'm just like, this is the dumbest fucking shit. Put on Maury. We're watching real stories. Okay. Put on my stories.
Well, speaking of real stories and trash TV and everything else, let's go ahead and move on into our main topic. Our main topic this week is going to be banned episodes of popular TV shows. Yes. This is one of my favorite subsections to dive into on YouTube, whether it be like lost episodes, banned episodes, that sort of stuff, because it's always the scenario of like, especially when you run into like banned episodes from like the mid and early 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
There's a few of them I'm like, I know for a fact I saw this on TV. You're meaning to tell me I saw one of the 3 airings of this episode? You're fucking kidding me.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, especially when you get up to like the more wholesome television shows, from back in the day that have been either banned or lost. But yeah, it is fascinating that someone can just come in and cut it out of the story, especially if the show's trying to do continuity. And then that continuity is just lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is very rare. And that I imagine that goes into the play of abandoning an episode too. It's like, hey, can we still keep the show going if we just 86 it?
Well, talking about some of the more classic examples, or when I say classic, I mean older examples. Because, of course, you've got your stuff like your Simpsons and your Family Guy and your South Park from the 90s and thousands. But this is not a more recent thing. One of the most popular ones, only till this year finally got uncovered, was a 1976 episode of Sesame Street.
Oh yeah,
with the Wicked Witch of the West from the
Wizard of Oz.
Thank you. Every time I try to fucking say one of the titles, it disappears from my head. But it only got one showing, and during test audiences, a lot of the children were freaked out by the witch. Yeah, even though she wasn't doing apparently abnormal, horrible things, it was still a kid's show. Yeah. It's not like they went fucking balls to the wall on this episode.
It's actually one of 2 episodes banned from Sesame Street. That's more famous. But the first one is from 1978, where it was mixed children playing together in a park, and that's how they opened it. Nope. I got rid of that one.
Well, see, that one was more banned, but you could always still kind of find it. This was banned and then also lost because it never got re-airings. That specific episode, I think that wound up getting re-aired by the late 80s.
Yeah, there's actually a bounty for certain content like this. If you can, the one, I think the famous one is the Christine Chubbuck live television broadcast where she kills herself on national television, but like that's like the second one. It's like, I think it's like $250,000.
Well, it's out now. Yeah. Someone's finally gotten it released, but yeah, so it was just, kids found it way too scary. It freaked them out way too much. And again, it's crazy how it wasn't until late 2022 did that episode finally see air again after only one showing.
Yeah, and it kind of sucks because like the reason it was lost is the film storage building that it was in had burned, and like a bunch of classic movies were in there as well. Yeah. And we had lost like decade, like 10, 20 years worth of old films were in there, and just
devastating.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's a famous one. Another one I kind of like is the banned episode of Mr. Rogers.
I had that one up next. In 1983, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood had a 5-episode arc where Mr. Rogers talks about conflict. The puppet King Friday is worried about a neighboring town that was building a bomb to destroy Make-Believe, so he led his fellow residents into a bomb factory to start building their own. It was intended to teach children about the Cold War and the fear surrounding it, but the episodes were all taken down due to their political nature.
Yeah, and this is during the Reagan years, and this is like tip-top fucking arms build up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The one I was thinking of was from 1968, before he got syndicated through PBS was him explaining the word assassination. It is kind of fucking weird and surreal to watch Mr. Rogers as a young man. Hello. There are many things we learn day by day, and he's talking about the word assassination, and he doesn't say the word until the very end, and he's slowly telling you the definition of what it means to see someone be murdered in front of you. Because Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy were both assassinated in 1968. And it's fucking surreal as shit. But the King Friday, like, hey, you see those motherfuckers over there?
We're going to build bombs.
Not today, motherfucker. This is King Friday's company. Roger, put your special sweater on. and buy me some gasoline.
This episode has also been found. It was found years ago. And watching clips of this episode is so fucking bizarre because, you know, when we were kids, you just got stuck in front of PBS every so often. So everyone has seen at least an episode or two of Mr. Rogers. So I know the vibe they're going for. I know what they're trying to do. And watching King Friday fucking tell motherfuckers to build bombs is like the most uncanny valley weird episode I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. One band episode I saw on the debut day as a child. Home was the name of the episode, and it was for the X-Files.
Oh.
It was The Hills Have Eyes on Fox. That's what happened. So, like, they go to a home of inbred fucking hillbillies, and they've continuously inbreed in the show.
Yeah.
The most visceral thing I remember is there is like a base that looks like a home plate base or something. They lift it up and there's a fetus under it, and they show it, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Because my grandpa got me into X-Files, and we would watch it together. I think it was like a Friday night. We're watching it, and that comes on. He's watching it with me, and like after the episode, he just turns that shit off, and it's just like, yikes.
And the thing is I could have possibly watched that as well because the initial air date was 1996, and it only got one more time being aired as a Halloween special in 1999.
I saw it in 96.
This little motherfucker was watching Fox on Halloween in 1999 because that was Kiss Night. There was an entire Kiss night on Fox for Halloween because they were playing in promotion of their Psycho Circus album. So they were on Mad TV, and right after Mad TV, Fox, which I think showed like 4 songs from the live broadcast they were doing that night, like they did like a live stream on TV, and then immediately following that was going to be a re-air of that X-Files episode. And I just remember as clear as day when the Kiss part wrapped up and they started showing previews for the X-File thing. Mom was like, nope, you're going to bed, you're not watching this.
It's a, like, even by today's standard, it's a little fucked up.
And probably one that kind of surprised me, and here's the interesting thing is I remember the culture around this, but I never remember distinctly hearing about it. 1997 episode of Pokemon, Electric Soldier Porygon. Yeah. This was banned pretty early on because in the climax of the episode, there's like this big explosion, and in the animation, they used flashing white, black, and red lights, or white, blue, and red lights. That's what it was. And they were like really fast flashing. So it was giving some people with epilepsy seizures. And I don't think the episode really ever made its way over.
Oh, it did.
Did it? It just had to be censored or something?
I had it on VHS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, got it from a video store. And I was just like, holy shit, this is fucking, like...
This is metal.
But he's like, it's the Porygon's effect. Like, he's using, like Flash or some shit. And, it's weird as fuck anyway, because the old Pokemon shows are just weird as shit anyway. Oh,
yeah. They had guns.
Yeah, well, yeah, they don't give a fuck. And they eat a lot.
They're like, Charmander, go! Glock, go!
But there's like, in that same thing, there's like a scene where Brock is like cooking like a whole chicken, and it's just like, I've never seen a chicken in the Pokemon universe.
He's cooking a Pidgey.
Yeah, he's cooking a fucking Pidgey. That's a Farfetch'd. He killed it. He killed it in front of God and everybody. They're eating a Spearow.
But the thing is I remember this being a thing because I remember the Simpsons parody when the family had to go to Japan for something, and Homer turned on the TV, and like every time he turned the TV on, he started like seizuring out and like laying on the floor.
Well, they do it in King of the Hill too when they go to Japan.
I don't think they did the Caesar joke though.
They made a joke about like, oh no, Peggy just comes and hits the TV. No, we're not here to watch TV. And it was about to be a dun, 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 dun.
But yeah, so that was probably the first time I really noticed that like something I liked as a kid was becoming pop culture relevant, because I started seeing that kind of reference.
Yeah, I remember that being on the news too. Like I remember seeing that on like WBTV, and then talking about, hey, this is, there's a warning out for kids about Pokemon, because that same year was, Pokemon's the devil.
Yep.
See what happened?
Too bad.
But yeah, that was probably the funniest one when it came to like the Pokemon thing. It was like, they're banned it because it's calling epilepsy. I'm like, not really. People have epilepsy.
Yeah, there was a few others that were banned. Like that was a more popular one. But like, as I was joking before, there was one time like Ash came bebopping up on some dude and started talking smack, and he just like turns around and points a gun in his fucking head.
Like the first thing Ash ever does in the fucking cartoon, like a Pokemon series, was try to catch a Pokemon with a rock. Like, he tries to hit
he just throws a fucking rock at a Pokemon.
And like a bunch of Spearows come up and try to like attack him.
Yes. Dumbass. And as we were talking about in that 90s show retrospective, there was always the very special episode of the sitcom.
Oh yeah, there's so many fucked up ones.
And what's funny is a lot of times the very special episodes are the ones that wind up getting lost or banned, mainly because they try to touch on too much of a sensitive topic. And I found this to be a really weird one. In 1991, Tiny Toon Adventures had a very special episode called The One Beer, in which Buster Bunny and Plucky Duck and Hampton J. Pig all decide that they're going to drink a beer. They get so drunk that they eventually drive off a cliff and die. And even though it opened with a warning, the episode was pulled from syndication because it was considered too heavy for a Saturday morning cartoon, even though it was also shown to just be a dream.
Yeah.
That's so fucking weird, though, that like a kid's show from 91 would like tackle drunk driving and death to young kids.
It's fucking wild. Because they're so like, Animaniacs was able to push a little more because Warner Brothers didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But with Tiny Toons, there's so many more fucked up things they could have banned.
Oh yeah.
Other than that, like there was a kid who was a human being, and he was super rich. There's a whole episode where he tries to buy the female bunny. He doesn't say why he wants to buy her, but the blue bunny tries to sell her.
Blue bunny trying to make some cash.
Yeah, and he's trying to sell his female friend to the rich guy who's a human being. And this is like, it I think would be a little bit more on the nose than a dream of getting shit faced.
Yeah. It's just maybe a little.
But like go to like special on a special episode. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air had a great one where Will and Carlton are going to go camping. Well, Will breaks something of Carlton's, but he says, let me tell you something, I'll pay for it, let's go to the ATM. Well, they go to the ATM, a guy shows up, pulls a gun, ends up shooting Will. And it's a very visceral episode because it's serious. Even in Beverly, even in Bel Air, Beverly Hills, you can still be a victim of gun violence. And the turn on the special episode is Carlton goes out and buys a motherfucking gun and keeps that motherfucking thing on him. And then Will is like, don't do that. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy looking for vengeance. Even though their dad is a judge, who's the epitome of, justice.
Yes.
And it's a very fucked up episode to watch. Kind of like when Will's dad shows up. And but yeah, on those very special episodes, that's a very serious like topic. And those are the shows I watched growing up. But I remember watching that. I'm like, holy shit, he got shot.
Can you think of another banned episode? Because that one was never banned. Like that's actually a high regarded episode.
In the show Community, there is an episode where they play D&D together. This is banned for the dumbest fucking reason. Ken Jeong, the Asian character that shows up, he's in The Hangover and stuff like that, paints his skin black, not brown, black, because he's playing a night elf. He dyes his hair flat white. He's got little pointed ears, and he's investing himself in this D&D game. The whole crux of the episode, though, is to make one character feel better about himself, to let people know that, hey, your hobbies are valid, and we're not treating you like shit. We want to experience your hobbies with you, to tell us what you know, basically, and make him part of the cohesive unit. They banned the fucking episode because he's dressed in blackface. But he's not in blackface, you know, and it's not like a racial thing. He's literally a role-playing character, and they banned the fucking episode. And Dan Harmon is the one who wrote the fucking episode. And
not surprising.
And he's just like, what the fuck? Like, he's losing his shit. And like any type of like when you watch Community on streaming, that episode doesn't exist, along with 2 episodes from South Park.
Yeah, so we'll get to those.
But like that is one of those things that's like, that's why you banned it. Mm-hmm. This literally was an anti-bullying episode, and you fucking ruined it. You got bullied.
Well, that's the same thing that happened with South Park, but I won't talk about that one last because there's a lot that went on with that. One of them that is maybe a little bit more in recent times and maybe not a surprising one, but let's go ahead and move on over to a Family Guy episode, 2010's Partial Terms of Endearment, where Lois becomes a surrogate for an old friend as an old friend and her husband, but it's summing it up way too quick. That's why I was kind of slowing down. All right, yeah, Lois meets up with some friends. The husband is unable to, the wife is unable to hold the child to term, so Lois agrees to be a surrogate mother. Everything's going good. Took a lot of convincing on Peter's behalf, this, that, and the other. Well, the main hook of the episode is they die, and now she's stuck with the baby. And now they have to decide what to do with it. And that's kind of the whole episode, is that conversation of, do we keep it? Do we abort it? This, that, and the other. And it's not really known what exactly they're going to do until the very end, where Peter just kind of like, it's almost like a quick cutaway, and he's just like, we got rid of it. It's like, goes straight to the credits.
Yeah.
And that episode was banned. It was the season 8 finale, and it is never properly aired in the US. You can find it on DVD. It is available, but it never got an air date. And I've watched the episode. Honestly, I think they created their own banned episode. Mm-hmm. I think they hyped it up so much, Fox got scared. Because when you watch the actual episode, I get why maybe they were a little scared to air it, but compared to all the other like crazy shit that happens today on TV, the jokes were pretty tame. The messaging never really leaned heavy to one side or another. It made great, points for both a pro-life and a pro-choice stance, so it's not like they were being heavy-handed with either. Honestly, I think just the reason they may have cut it is because of the crassness of just the decision. Like, just one line at the very end. Yeah, we got rid of it. Yeah. So that may have been the whole reason being, is they left such a heavy decision on just one little quick throwaway line at the very end of the episode.
Well, Seth MacFarlane had talked about this episode because before that, they had created the movie, the Family Guy movie.
Yes, which was the untold story of Stewie Griffin.
Which is about 3 episodes.
It's literally what they did for the following season.
And that's what it was. This one was supposed to be the next movie on DVD. And it was supposed to be 2 episodes in length, but extended episodes. So let's say push it to like 80 minutes or some shit like that. And it was going to be the next movie, a faux movie.
Right.
Because I remember this Untold Story Stewie Griffin was in the video store, and it was a black case and everything. And it was just like, oh, okay, this is fine. Oh, it's just 3 episodes from the show. Okay. Yeah. Okay, whatever. But I remember when that came out, and he said he wanted to push it so hard because he wanted to see if he could get canceled again. Because up until that point, they had got canceled twice. And then, by the time season 8 was all around, they were part of Adult Swim on syndication and Fox. So, and then TBS, came in and picked up more of his content, and to the point where years later they ended up carrying American Dad. So it was a thing to see what he could get away with. He talked about it on I think Vanity Fair or something like that. But he talked about like, I just wanted to see what I could do, because he's like he's like up here in ego, and he wanted to knock himself down a peg because he knew he was losing his shit. And like he was having that Chappelle problem where he's just like, what the fuck am I? And like that's what it was really for. And I remember reading that article, I'm just like, what the fuck, you rich prick. Now they're fucking like season 19 or some shit.
And actually, even from that, it was pretty funny. They had like this. The episode wasn't good, but
it's not as good as the rest, though.
No, and the episode I'm about to mention isn't that good. But much like Family Guy, every episode has like one or two lines that you can kind of chuckle at, and then the rest of it you just kind of stare blankly at. The episode where Peter meets Trump. I never saw that one. I never did either, but they showed a clip where they were kind of going back and forth where Trump was like, you're not that different from me. I believe in this, that, and the other. I don't like this, that, and the other. I don't like the gays. He's like, well, to be fair, we've been kind of cutting down on the gay jokes. But then like the following season, a character in an audience raised his hand and goes, hey, didn't you say last season you were cutting down on the gay jokes? And Peter just goes, that was horribly misquoted and extremely misunderstood.
Yeah, you're talking about bringing that one up. A newer show that had a banned episode out the gate was the show Hannibal.
Yes,
the show Hannibal had a lot of shows that should have been banned. Because it should have been on fucking HBO, but it was on NBC of all places. And there was an episode on there, and I remember pretty vividly, was a woman was kidnapping children by killing their whole family. She was a family annihilator, which is an actual term used for certain types of killers. And she would keep one kid alive, and the kid would join a group of other kids who helped her annihilate whole families.
Yeah.
And that's how she recruited, It's kind of like the same plot of the movie Sinister without ghosts and shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So these little band of kids are walking around finding other kids and then following them home and then murdering their families.
Yeah.
Molly Shannon is in it, an SNL alum that doesn't fit. But somehow, how like the comedian plays a great villain? This was her, because she gets shot and she doesn't go down immediately. And I'm just like, holy shit, it's like the Terminator. Kill her. Like, keep shooting her. But like they catch them in the act of almost killing an entire family while they have a new kid. And if you ever get a chance to watch the show Hannibal, it is batshit insane. Like the visuals alone are just like metal album covers.
Well, another one that surprised me, this was one of them. Now we're starting to get into territory of like, I saw this on TV. SpongeBob SquarePants Midlife Crustacean. This one surprised me that this was a banned episode. It was the third season. It was in the third season, and Mr. Krabs is kind of feeling down and out. They feeling like he's an old man. So he calls upon Patrick and SpongeBob to bring his youth back out. In which, going through town, they're doing all this stuff, and it's like, they're like, you want some crazy funnies? It's like, yes. And then they're like, go to an ice cream shop. And they're like, isn't this crazy, Mr. Krabs? And like the entire time he's like, you're just a bunch of nerds and all this works. And then Patrick goes, oh, so you really don't want to do the big one we were saving for last? He's like, what? He goes, the panty raid. And the whole thing after that is they're trying to send Mr. Krabs into a house to steal a pair of panties and get back out. Yeah. Every fucking early coming of age 1980s fucking nerd movie. It's Revenge of the Nerds, essentially. And that episode originally was supposed to air in November of 2002, but was later canceled by Nickelodeon. It was later shown on the network, but further reruns have excluded it. And that's why I'm sitting here going, I know I've seen it, because that's where one of the popular lines of, are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs? Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs? That's where that comes from. It comes from that episode. It comes from a banned episode of SpongeBob. And so, but just like according to this article from Watch Mojo, like it's not on like Paramount Plus or Prime or any of that. Like you can't find that episode on streaming anymore.
Yeah. a show that I really loved watching growing up, and I still do on Memorial Day weekend, is The Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
So The Twilight Zone has one banned episode because of the time it aired.
Yeah.
So during the height of our invasion of Vietnam, George Takei from Star Trek was in an episode called The Encounter. Well, in Twilight Zone fashion, it's a very weird opener. Rod Serling just shows up out of reality and says, "Hey, this is a room full of war trophies. There's a special trophy in the back, and it's a samurai sword. And what happened was the man who has this sword killed a soldier in battle and took the sword home. War spoils. Can't do that anymore, but that's the thing. And that was a proper thing of Japanese soldiers, where certain captains or squad leaders and stuff would carry samurai swords into battle because it's part of their fucking culture. Anyway, he took one home as a trophy. Well, eventually he goes toe-to-toe with the master of that sword. He appears in the attic because it's a Twilight Zone. Doesn't need reasoning. And they go toe-to-toe with each other over the sword. But it's all about, when does conflict end? And with the whole invasion of Southeast Asia, which is, another part of World War II, Korea, Vietnam, when are we getting the fuck out of Asia? We've been here for 3 fucking decades. It did not go over well. No. George Takei said he was very sad that it was the second banned episode he was ever in of a show. Because there is another episode of Star Trek he's banned called Patterns of Force, which the crew end up going back in time to an alternate Earth where the Nazis were in charge, and they end up kicking Nazi ass. That's what it was. But they banned that episode because of the depiction of the Nazis. One Nazi in particular is very being sympathetic, who was drawn into quickly into the Nazi thing. But it was about violence, begetting violence and stuff like that. And George Takei I love his trail off on it. He's just like, yeah, and Rod never invited me back again. And I'm just like, really, George, that's what you took from that? Rod had no fucking way to say that. Like, that's not his say.
And at least in our circle, I think this is a good one to end on, because I think that unless there's like another like specifically notable one you want to bring up, because we've got little small things like an episode of The Simpsons where there was they
go to New York.
Yeah, they go to New York, and there's like a photo of like the 2 twin towers with a 9 right beside it, and shit like that, which was pure coincidence, but at the same time, that's now a banned episode. So there's just a whole bunch of like weird censorship things like that.
I know you're a fan of the Seinfeld, and like their
Puerto Rican Day.
Yeah, that goes over south. Yeah. I think that's like the second to last episode of the series too. That's why they go to jail. That's why they go to jail at the end, is because of that Puerto Rican episode. But yeah, out of all of those were about the biggest ones. The school shooting episode from Buffy was kind of visceral for a lot of people who from the Joss Whedon experience were just like, holy shit, because it aired in 1999, which was the same year as Columbine happening. And like people were like, holy fuck. But he had planned that ahead of time, and they had filmed it before Columbine even happened, and it's just like, what the shit? On coincidence, it's fucking wild.
Well, that was even like the Boston Marathon. Family Guy had already scripted out, animated, and like fully released an episode where Peter ran through a crowd with his car at the Boston Marathon and was like, did I win? Literally like a week later is when the bombing happened, and they were like, a bunch of people were trying to do like, Family Guy predicted the future, and Seth shut that shit down quick. He was like, no, fucking stop it, you goddamn animals. This was a tragedy. We were making comedy. We didn't know anything. The episode is pulled. Shut the fuck up.
It is kind of funny. I got a funny story about the Boston bombing, but
there's no phrasing. There's probably no funny story about the Boston bombing.
I got a funny story about when I heard it.
But probably the biggest one, though, and I feel that both of us probably have a lot of information on, is the infamous episodes 200 and 201 from South Park.
Yeah, so you have to torrent these episodes because God forbid you have anything nice in this world.
Yes.
But no, 200 and 201 open up kind of like Imagination Land. It was going to be a big 2-part series. And Trey Parker and Matt Stone, just like Seth MacFarlane, were just like, cancel us. we're tired of your bullshit. You know, they enjoy making the show, but, you know, a lot of stuff, you know, it was getting to that point where the studio could probably tell them what to do. And, like, they didn't want to do that no more. Because they've said multiple times, if anyone tells us how we do our own fucking show, we will end it. We will step the fuck away.
Yeah. And they're big enough now where they could probably just pull from any network and be like, we're our own independent thing. Go to southpark.cc to watch a new episode.
I think that's why they made that deal with Paramount, because, you know, we've had 2-3 movies already technically, so we still need 7 more. So because they signed a 10-movie deal. But with this one, it was a lot of bringing back old characters, bringing back some plot lines. One of the biggest plot lines was, who is Cartman's father? Now, South Park did a fuck you and said Cartman's mom was his own daddy.
Yeah.
It turns out it was Mr. Tedderman.
Yep.
Scott Tedderman's father. Scott Tedderman's father and his mother were both killed by a farmer and ground into meat by Cartman, made into chili, human chili, and was fed to Scott Tedderman
at a chili con cook-off.
Yep, chili con carnival, which he hosted, all because he said, I taught a horse to eat your dick.
No, the whole crux of the episode was Scott sold him pubes.
Well, that was his vengeance, was I was going to train a pony to bite your dick off.
Yes, but instead, I killed your parents.
Yeah, I killed your parents and fed them chili. And my favorite quote is, chef, this is very good chili. And they animate the mouth, because it was still around that time before, like, computers and shit were getting involved, and it was like,
well, computers were doing all the episodes starting at episode 2. Yeah, everything was done on computers.
But they were still using the scanned images of the mouths and stuff.
So it's just like real choppy.
And fucking hilarious. And
yeah, that was like one of like 50 plot lines they were bringing back.
Another thing,
Cartman's dad, Scott Tedderman, the super best friends.
We're back with the Prophet Muhammad and Seaman.
Yeah, Seaman and my hawk Swallow.
Yeah. There was Seaman, Jesus, the Prophet Muhammad, Joseph Smith, and then I want to say the Buddha.
Yeah, Gandhi,
and they were all part of the super best friends, and they fought. Muhammad appears in an older episode.
Yes, now
who shoots flames out of his hands.
That's the part I wanted to bring up. So, context is everything with why this episode got banned. In the exact same time this was happening, other animators and cartoonists were getting either murdered or bombed if they
shown the Prophet Muhammad in a negative light.
Yeah, well, if they drew him at all.
Yeah, so
it wasn't even like showing in a negative light. Yeah. It was, if you draw a photo of the Prophet Muhammad, that is reason enough for execution. And I think it was like a newspaper or something got bombed.
There was a guy named Charlie Hebdo at the time of it who had drawn a photo of Muhammad with a turban with a fuse coming out of it, so it looked like a bomb. It's hilarious. It's a solid joke.
Yeah.
But going back to what you were saying, that going after people who drew Muhammad, that had actually came about because of the Taliban, not any other Muslim group. And I thought that was just like the biggest fucking thing about it, was like, oh no, the Taliban. And this is actually a precursor to like ISIS and shit. So this whole thing fucking happened because of some bullshit scripture that someone said. Meanwhile, Trey Parker about someone showing Jesus with a kukure, which is a knife with 5 blades, and killing people with it. So like, I don't really give a shit.
And that was their stance on it. Is they're like, we're not like what you were saying, we're not showing him in any sort of negative light. He is on the same footing as every other, godly deity that's here. We should be able to make this episode. And the entire time Muhammad was on screen, there was a huge black censor bar.
Yeah.
And the second episode 201, is probably the most egregious of it all. So we already had part 1 where you saw, the censor and everything else. And even Matt and Trey were like, we didn't approve of that. That wasn't our joke. Like, this was the episodes I said I remember watching. I remember watching that episode and going, oh, that's funny. He's there, but they just made him a censor bar. I get that. That's actually kind of funny. then read a couple days later, they're like, yeah, no, we didn't put that there. Like Comedy Central retroactively put that there during the airing. So no, that was not what it was meant to be. The second episode happens, more censor bars, and at the very tail end, Kyle's entire speech is beeped.
Yep.
And it's like, you can hear the unedited version, like a version got leaked out somewhere. And Kyle's, I think we learned something speech was talking about not bowing to bullying. Because the B plot of that was Cartman trying to get Family Guy canceled.
Well, that was the thing, because because everybody in the town were freaking out because, oh my God, Family Guy's going to show Muhammad, and it was one last fuck you, not just to it wasn't really a fuck you to Family Guy, but to the people that run Family Guy. That isn't Seth MacFarlane.
The writers.
Yeah. And hey, can you show this? Why would you capitulate to a group of terrorists? Do you believe that your safety is involved? Yeah, that's fine. You can believe that all fucking day. That's why you don't yell fire in a theater. But you're just saying that I'm going to bow down to these threats, and it's very un-American in a way. You know what I'm saying? It's very fucked up. And it goes back to who's really in charge when it comes to writing these shows. And another part of this was a lot of actors and actresses who have been made fun of on South Park
all came back. Tom Cruise,
they all
Mecha Streisand,
but it was because around that same time those people were going after television, but mainly South Park, because they were being made fun of, Rob Reiner and stuff like that. And they're talking about how it's just trash TV, even though he had a positive light about it when he first got made fun of. But now all of a sudden, oh no, South Park is the worst thing on television. It's shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And that's why they brought him back. Hey, look, it's Tom. He's packing fudge.
He's a fudge packer.
Tom Cruise is a fudge packer. But that was the whole thing, and I was just like, that is a solid joke. And they brought back Streisand and everything, and I was just like, that was the weirdest part. Why do you hate Barbara Streisand? And it's just
they never fully explained it. They're everyone we make fun of, it's all in good spirit, except for Barbara Streisand. We fucking hate her.
Yeah, fuck her in particular.
Yes.
But yeah, that's probably from them being in school having to watch fucking Fiddler on the Roof or some shit. But yeah, so the 200 and 201 are so actually hard to find still. You could torrent them all day. If I was making a collection, yeah, I would. But we were going back to the Muhammad episode. Muhammad, I think, believes appears in season 3.
Yes, and uncensored.
I have that on DVD. And he's using flame powers.
Yes.
And the whole thing was an evil scientist had inhabited the statue of Abraham Lincoln, and he was walking around destroying the towns and whatever. And so the super best friend's best idea was, we'll make a giant statue of John Wilkes Booth, and it just bam. Way to go, super best friends. What the fuck? Because they're trying to use all their powers, and he's like, yoga flame. It's like, what the fuck? Because he looked like Dawson.
And unfortunately, that episode, along with 200 and 201, are not on HBO or Paramount, whatever the fuck the episodes of South Park live now.
No, they're still on HBO.
Not those episodes, though.
Oh, no. Hell no.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Those 3 episodes specifically. There's more. There's a lot of episodes of South Park that are kind of gotten rid of, but those are probably the most popular. And I
know the Rainforest episode is banned.
Yeah,
with Jennifer Aniston.
The thing is the Rainforest Critters episode, I'm not surprised that one got banned, and I'm not that sad about it because it wasn't even that funny to start with.
I'm talking the Rainforest episode, not the Christmas Critters.
Oh,
the Christmas Critters were banned for a reason.
Yeah, I was gonna say that one wasn't even funny. When these
Christmas card animals would start yelling blood orgy, and it's just like, way to go, Stan.
Yeah.
You fuck. But it's fun. Now it is fun to fight them in the game.
I bet,
because they have a weird fucking ability where they can double team and fucking go on each side of you and then resurrect. It's bullshit.
But no, I remember watching those episodes when it came out. So it's just in this whole episode of banned episodes and stuff, it is weird to think that that weird childhood memory you have of watching one of your favorite shows, and then you've come to find out a year later, oh, I can't watch that episode anymore. And knowing that you were part of that, it was, even though it's a big number, it's still small in the grand scheme of things. That couple 100,000 that watched that episode, and that's it.
And
when it happened.
Like going back to Community, when I found out that was banned, I have it saved on a hard drive, the entire show, and I was just I was trying to look for it, and I was like, okay, I have it there.
Yep.
But I'm like, that is such a good episode. It's actually a highlight of the season itself, and people, even fans of Community, when they make top 10 lists on Reddit and shit, it's on that list, but it's banned for the dumbest fucking reason, and it's just Kim Jeong from The Hangover dressed in pure black, the color black skin and white hair, playing a night elf, and it's so fucking hilarious.
I wish I still had some of my old hard drives, because kind of looking up videos and stuff over the last few years of these banned episodes, there's a lot of course, South Park and Family Guy episodes. Well, I was a big Family Guy fan early on, and I had a Zune player. And that motherfucker...
What happened to you, man? you fucking traitor.
That thing was the shit, too, man. A big screen, so it's you can put TV and movies on it. So I put the entire catalog of Family Guy up to that point on it. And listening to some of these banned or censored episodes, I'm sitting here going, I had that version on my Zune. I know I had that version because that's the way I'm used to hearing it. I don't know about this other version. The censored version is a new version to me. I've always had the uncensored, weird, TV version. I wish I still had those hard drives because they were pretty good quality, better quality than the clips you find on YouTube. And I'm just the Lost Media crew would love me if I still had this hard drive.
I had that for the PSP when it first came out. I realized had a open video player on it.
Yeah, open source video,
Yeah. And I watched the Boondocks. That's how I watched the Boondocks on my fucking PSP. And then my buddy's like, "You can watch video on that?" I'm like, "Yeah, all you gotta do is put a little SD." I bought a little SD card, micro, and did all that shit. And I'm just because I was still using a fucking computer that had Windows XP on it, and I was just like, "Oh, I gotta transfer these files," but the fucking tower itself doesn't have a slot for it, so I had to use someone's laptop. And I was just like, "Thank God, this is fucking ridiculous."
But no. I love going into all that. I love talking about lost media and shit like that, especially if it's weird stuff that you saw as a kid that is now lost media, and you're oh, I saw it, now I can't see it anymore. It's weird.
Yeah, and that's what's funny is there's a list online of a bounty on a lot of these, especially the older stuff where people didn't do streaming and stuff or record or Devo.
Yeah, before Betamax and VHS was really
but
usable.
there is the highest bounty right now is $2 million if you have footage of Christine Chubbuck, who was a anchor for the Cincinnati News, I believe, and they made a whole movie about her. She got on live television, and she was tired of the news station just showing violence, because her job was to show the good news, and she would go to farms and schools and talk about this and that, and they kept cutting her segments. And so she got on live television and said, "To be in keeping with channel such and such as Blood and Gore and your daily feed, I'm Christine Chubbuck." And she pulls a pistol out of her fucking under and puts it in her mouth and shoots her fucking head off. And people on TV were like, "What the fuck just happened?" And because it was live.
Yeah.
And the studio or whatever, the news company, destroyed all fucking material.
Well, I'm not surprised.
But there is a $2 million bounty for it. No, they're not saying it didn't happen, but they're just we want that shit.
See, I'd never heard of that before.
Yeah, Christine Chubbuck. It's wild because not long after that, a man named Bud Dwyer had shot himself.
See, I heard about that one.
Bud Dwyer is a guy who got fucked over.
Yeah.
And as a show of force, pulls out a fucking pistol. Everybody's like, "Holy shit, he's gonna shoot everybody!" But he kills himself, and that was part of the Faces of Death and Traces of Death movies and stuff like that. But the Christine Chubbuck one is the wildest fucking story about a snuff film I think I've ever read.
Well, it wouldn't be a Couch Potatoes episode without Chris bringing up at least some sort of heinous murder.
Snuff. It's for you. It's for me.
If you got any sort of episode recommendations for us, we've been building up a nice little Google Doc, kind of getting more into the flow of this. Got a couple good ideas, but if you've got some ideas for us, hop in that episode description, tap that Discord link and sign on up. We share a lot of different memes in there. We share some recipes. We got a bunch of musicians in there, so we talk about ways to make your guitars and your drums sound all beefy. And then Chris has got his own little corner where he yells about conspiracies and serial killers. Come and join in, have some fun with us. But for this episode of the Couch Potatoes, I've been Alex and Chris. As that rubber band is slowly cutting off the circulation to your finger, do you have any sort of final thoughts for us?
I would love a biopic of Maury right now, just starring just someone who doesn't fit the look, like Jim Carrey.
Well, didn't we get one on Springer?
I don't know if we ever got a movie about Springer. We got a documentary about Springer, but I'm talking about a full like biopic about just Maury and him just like off camera, just being like, "You are the fucking father, I'm mine," and it's just like losing his shit.